Shames, good to see you as always, and thank you at home for watching us. We'll see you next time.
This is a guy we should be adding, and if you added him this week, you loved life because he was coming off not just a great Sunday last week when we were ahead of that curve, but also a great Thursday night football as well. So last week, 7 for 9 for 164 and a touchdown. This week on Thursday, 5 for 5, 77 and a touchdown. He didn't even play the first 2 weeks of the year, and he's already a top 10 tight end in scoring, if you can believe it.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Travis Hunter, Joe, is a part-time wide receiver. As I've told people from the moment he was drafted, there's zero chance long-term that they'll continue to do this. In terms of playing offense and defense, they're going to have to pick a position with him. Brian Thomas, he was unbelievable. Talking to the Jaguars about him last season, he was so far ahead of schedule where they thought he'd be super smart. He had a wrist injury, by the way. We need to mention that, Joe, earlier this season.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
SMU is undefeated. You got Louisville that knocked off Miami. Yeah. Miami has one loss. There's multiple teams that potentially can make a run for an ACC championship. So their backs are still against the wall. Like, Georgia Tech is not a shoo-in right now just because they're undefeated, because they still have to play Georgia at the end of the year as well. Even though it's out of conference, that can knock them out of the playoff.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
$17,848 have been bet on this question, Joe Kalshi. How many pro football games will Taylor Swift attend this season?
They average an average of 9.3 games during this season here, and a lot of that has to do with her reduced touring schedule, and this maybe being his final NFL season.
Incredible stuff here.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Busy night here on SportsGrid. Happy to have you with us. It's Game Time Decisions. Kevin Walsh here from the Decisions Desk as we have 90 minutes to run through it all. And it is a busy Wednesday. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of lines. So we have to go through it all. We start tonight in the NBA. It is a big slate here on this Wednesday with some key items to focus in on. Primarily, though, some returns. Darius Garland back for the Cleveland Cavaliers for the first time this season. Maybe sooner than expected, Garland playing here in just the 8th game of the season. An opportunity to hand Philadelphia a second straight loss. This great start to the Sixers season spoiled a little bit with last night's blown lead to the Chicago Bulls. The Cavs, positioned as conference favorites, have the opportunity to extend a little bit here the losing streak for Philadelphia. It's one to watch. As well as relating to the East and the top of it, the Knicks, all of a sudden, a far more difficult game on their schedule. Minnesota welcomes Anthony Edwards back to the lineup tonight. Edwards, with a hamstring injury, had missed 4 full games, really 5 in a row. He was injured within the first 3 minutes of a game against the Pacers that Minnesota was able to hold on. And the Wolves have done a good job holding on. This was a lighter part of the schedule for Minnesota, but this is an earlier return, I feel, than anticipated for Anthony Edwards. I think we were hearing a little bit more of a 2-week window. That meant not just tonight being missed, but maybe 2 more on top of that. What do the minutes look like for these superstars? That is always tricky when you get into the props market. We will talk about how both players are being listed tonight as you try and get set for the NBA action. In the world of college football, we get back to the MAC. The MACtion began last night. 2 pretty fun games, if not profitable for our team here. Listen, I love that UMass bet. It didn't come in. It wasn't the right side, but it was a fun side. And it was it was a roller coaster worth riding. I'd like to believe, though I am speaking as someone who was not on UMass, but just watched from afar. Tonight, you get Toledo laying over 2 touchdowns against Northern Illinois, and then Ball State, Kent State, with the dog being Kent State on the road. But shout out to the Golden Flashes. They enter 2-2 so far in MAC play. Not a bad season, all things considered, for Kent State. In other college football news, last night we were given the first look at the College Football Playoff Committee's top 25. And there is one team who I think should look at yesterday's rankings and be very, very concerned. Yesterday was not a good day for one team. And I will tell you this right now. I'll play this spoiler. It has nothing to do with the ACC. Nothing to do with that. The ACC stuff, even, I'll just say this off the top. People who thought Miami was going to be ranked in front of Notre Dame were living in a la-la land and were doubling and tripling down after the committee did what the AP poll did, what the coaches poll did, what any sensible person would do, which is have not just Notre Dame in front of Miami, but a gap between those two programs. There is a gap between those two programs. Yes, Miami won on a walk-off field goal in week number 1. They also lost to an unranked SMU. They lost to Louisville. The losses matter, right? Wins matter. Yeah, wins matter, losses matter. The whole thing matters. The entire thing, which is, again, why I think one team should be very concerned with what they saw yesterday, where they're situated, and what remains on this upcoming schedule. Perhaps you're going to bet the ice tonight. It is a Wednesday right now in the National Hockey League. You do not have a monster board. It begins in Toronto with the Maple Leafs hosting the Mammoth. It'll then carry over to the Caps and the Blues. You do get Connor Bedard in action once again, not lighting the world on fire, Bedard, but having a nice little start to the season personally, even if Chicago isn't stacking win after win after win. Not necessarily, those weren't necessarily the expectations for the Blackhawks this season. In NFL news, of course, it is a Wednesday. We will be giving you our target player props as always. We often look to work in our, if we can, some of the relevant news. The trade deadline provided some very relevant spots. And we never want to force anything, but what you have are some legitimate questions and then some legit value spots coming off of the NFL trade deadline as it pertains to target player props. We will be joined by NFL insider Adam Kaplan later on to talk about the big day that was, including the New York Jets surprising many by trading both Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that. I mean, it's really that simple. I will say this. I wish Dallas was playing on Sunday. The tone of the move has been very negative, and I agree with it. But Dallas didn't get worse with those moves. Their long-term outlook is worse now. Just they've ruined some of the flexibility that they at least were able to gain through the Micah Parsons nightmare. But Dallas got better at the deadline. That would make Dallas a play on while being discussed very negatively. Instead, they're on bye, which is a bit of a shame. There could have been some value created there. One other big decision, though, that has been made within the last 24 hours in the National Football League is Kyler Murray being placed on IR. Do I think Kyler Murray is injured? Sure. Do I think Kyler Murray is going through what J.J. McCarthy went through? Actually worse. because Minnesota always wanted to get back to JJ. Kyler Murray has almost assuredly played his final game as an Arizona Cardinal. The Vikings did everything they could to cover a soft benching for McCarthy with health. The Cardinals put Kyler Murray on IR and said, just so you know, if he was healthy, still wouldn't start him. You don't do that to a franchise quarterback. Kyler Murray is not that for the Arizona Cardinals. And he will be moved this offseason without a shadow of a doubt. So when we get into the offseason and when we're figuring out QB carousel, who is going where, just know that conversation now will have Kyler Murray heavily, heavily a part of it. You know, are the Cardinals going to be the next team to think that they've struck gold with a, one-time backup QB and see if Jacoby Brissett can be the guy moving forward? I wouldn't rule it out because that a lot of, it's in vogue right now in the National Football League. But after the break, we're going to get right back to the top, which is the NBA here on this Wednesday night. A loaded slate, and I mentioned some key returners, but I left out a couple of key games, including LA and San Antonio, Luka Doncic against Victor Wembanyama, with Wemby coming off of one of his worst games as a pro. Despite the breakout season, how does Wemby bounce back tonight in LA? We'll let you know after the commercial break. We're right here on SportsGrid.
Jeremiah Love is a player that you have to keep an eye out on just because of a running back, his versatility, how good he is in the receiving game this year. We haven't seen a running back potentially crack the top three when you just think about it with the Heisman Trophy back there. Jeremiah Love just dominant. If Notre Dame wins out and they're in the college football playoff, Love should be involved in the conversation.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Starts off on a positive note of getting Lamar Jackson back Thursday night, which was great. He threw for 200 yards, did not look rusty at all. He only rushed for 15, but he didn't really need that. Lamar Jackson also threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 of which going to Mark Andrews. So guess who's back and relative again at the tight end position now that Lamar's back? Oh, wait, it's Mark Andrews. No kidding. I mean, the guy just catches touchdowns. It's Lamar's favorite guy in the red zone.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Blue Jays are going to be dangerous for years to come because they have money. They're a fun team. Other players like Guerrero, the Blue Jays are a first-class organization. They treat the players very well. They're first-class complex. As I stated earlier, you can live like across the street from the stadium and there's no drama. You don't have to sit in traffic ever. You have an entire country that buys your jerseys and are big fans of yours.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Back at the right here on SportsGrid. It is Game Time Decisions, and on this Wednesday night, it is the NBA taking center stage. I think for most bettors, I didn't really mention the college basketball board. It's terrible. It's non-existent. Creighton versus South Dakota. The college basketball world actually should be pretty ashamed of themselves for giving us this. No football to go up against. Like, ultimately, then don't have your opening night on a Monday if this is what we're going to do, run up against Monday Night Football. Like, we bash other leagues for this. The NCAA can clean this up. They would never do this to the college football game. Why you do it to the college basketball game is beyond me. With that said, we get to the NBA tonight. I want to just start with the big returns of Darius Garland and Anthony Edwards. I think their props are telling. Darius Garland checks in tonight with a points prop of 14.5. That is well below where you would find Darius Garland props all throughout last season. Averaged 20.6 points per game on the year. Shot 40% from beyond the arc with nearly 3 made threes a game. You're getting a plus price on 3 made threes. That tells us the books are not entirely sure you'll see a full workload from Garland in this basketball game. I think maybe another compounding factor, though, is the number that we're seeing tonight. With the Cavs back to full strength and Philly on the second leg of a back-to-back having no Joel Embiid or Jared McCain in the game, this is a double-digit number. If the Cavs are up big, the MO is not going to be, hey, let Garland play in garbage time and shake off a little extra rust. It's going to be awesome. Appreciate the 18, 20 minutes, and let's get out of here. Makes it a tricky one. The Anthony Edwards number at 25.5, I think shows a lot more confidence that the player is going to be near full go. But I'm not sure about that. So here's what's interesting. Anthony Edwards on the year is averaging 25.7 points per game. That is entirely misleading. Anthony Edwards against the Pacers, where he hurt the hamstring, played 3 minutes, 5 points. That counts to the average. In his first 2 games, he was averaging a lot more than that. Gave you 41 in the opener against Portland and 31 on the road against LA. Played 35 minutes in each of those games at 36 a night. We're well under expectations for at least how Anthony Edwards started the season. So I think that 25.5 is a fascinating number because typically you see a prop of 25.5, that's full go. I don't think that's a full Anthony Edwards number. I can't get to over 25.5 on a 27-minute expectation. A point a minute, that is, again, a little too far, a little too rich for my taste on Anthony Edwards. I thought it was worth mentioning. Speaking of Ant Edwards, though, in the back, a little bit of fade of the return of Ant Edwards and a moneyline parlay. Best bet, our guy Casino Chris goes to the association on a Wednesday night, which is how you know the NBA is taking center stage. He's going to pair the Knicks with the Pistons at home against the Jazz. I don't mind. The Pistons piece of it, Utah goes on the road, beat Boston. And then I know he didn't play in the game. I know he was injured. Like, we immediately get the news Walker Kessler shut down. It's like this big reminder, like, hey, enjoy this 3-4 start. There's only about 10 or 15 more wins here, okay? Because that's what this Jazz season is going to be. Best bet for Sam tonight is Cedric Coward, the youngster in Memphis, their rookie, who's been maybe the only bright spot of this season. Ja Morant is back. Does that matter? Ja Morant in his first game back from the suspension, played 35 minutes. He seemingly wanted to play more minutes. Had 10 assists, 5 boards. That's nice. 18 points on 16 shots. That's terrible. Ja is still not in that right headspace. Memphis is tempting. That is a lot of points they are catching at home tonight against the Rockets. But I kind of removed I backed off some of these Memphis numbers, somewhat recently, and I just don't have enough confidence to get to that team. I do have enough confidence, though, to get to Dallas tonight. It's not the lowest number you'll ever see, but it's a number I'm fine playing at 117.5. Give me a team total over for the Dallas Mavericks against the New Orleans Pelicans. That Pels-Hornets game beat me up a little bit last night. Over 229.5, misses by 2, with the Hornets not scoring in the final 3 minutes of that game. But I am not interested right now in doing a full fade of the Pels. I think I am most comfortable early NBA season right now looking at my results in the team total market. Clippers got there last night, ended up closer than I wanted it to be. It ended up an OKC blowout. They didn't cover the number. New Orleans, no Zion, no Poole. These youngsters have juice. Again, I'd rather fade them defensively than offensively. This is a spot where the Mavs are playing a very bad defense, finally. I know they had a game against the Wizards at home. It was a little different. I think they were still shocked off of that loss to San Antonio to open the night. AD was still there. I think you see Clay shoot it well. Cooper Flagg played really well. Rebounds plus assists make sense. D'Lo off for the bench contributing. I think you see plenty tonight from Dallas. AJ closes out a best bet with a money line play. Looking ahead, Oklahoma City, their first loss. Money continues to come in on the Blazers. Clearly, it is a spot play. It's also just an injury report that won't stop adding. Lou Dort out, Holmgren out, Caruso out. Here's my issue. And I don't mind. At least AJ gets himself a plus price. Blazers spot, Thunder number. They've gone into a number of these games shorthanded. And SGA just steps up and deliver. And he'll be fresh as can be. 29 minutes last night. He's fine. Gave you 30, 12, and 4. No problem. Maybe Portland gets it done. It's a Portland spot. I can't get to that now. I'm not 3.5 now in the market. That is absolutely remarkable. We'll talk a little bit more about what tonight brings, including Victor Wembanyama versus Luka Doncic. That is all next, and it is all coming up right here on SportsGrid. Game time decisions. We'll be right back after the break.
Jeremiah Love is a player that you have to keep an eye out on just because of a running back, his versatility, how good he is in the receiving game this year. We haven't seen a running back potentially crack the top 3 when you just think about it with the Heisman Trophy back there. Jeremiah Love just dominant. If Notre Dame wins out and they're in the college football playoff, Love should be involved in the conversation.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Starts off on a positive note of getting Lamar Jackson back Thursday night, which was great. He threw for 200 yards, did not look rusty at all. He only rushed for 15, but he didn't really need that. Lamar Jackson also threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 of which going to Mark Andrews. So guess who's back and relative again at the tight end position now that Lamar's back? Oh, wait, it's Mark Andrews. No kidding. I mean, the guy just catches touchdowns. It's Lamar's favorite guy in the red zone.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly, Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Blue Jays are going to be dangerous for years to come because they have money. They're a fun team. Other players like Guerrero, the Blue Jays are a first-class organization. They treat the players very well. They're first-class complex. As I stated earlier, you can live like across the street from the stadium and there's no drama. You don't have to sit in traffic ever. You have an entire country that buys your jerseys and are big fans of yours.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Time decisions. If you are not betting the NBA tonight, the options are a little more limited than you'd love to see on a Wednesday. Again, the blame for that is on the college basketball world. Your only ranked game is Creighton versus South Dakota. Creighton laying 29.5. Yesterday's College Board, we saw the third member of the big 3 of college freshmen, Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, and then man, oh man, Cam Boozer goes out there, and I'm not saying he had the best game of the trio, but he didn't outscore in the first half and finished that game with 15, 13, 3 steals, a block, 2 assists. It is going to be an incredible race for the first overall pick next year. I cannot remember right now at the top of my head something like that in recent memory, at least. I don't know, like maybe the Duke trio going in, but it was like clearly Zion, but like Zion, RJ, Cam. Ice tonight, again, we mentioned it. It's a 5-game slate. Odds-wise, the closest matchup is actually Calgary, booked as a short home favorite against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Late night, you've got the Sharks and the Kraken. Then, as I mentioned earlier, Bedard and the Blackhawks go to Vancouver to take on the Canucks. College football slate here on this Wednesday. It's Maction again. On Thursday, you will get the American South Florida playing, which is an important one. One little adjustment to the eyes off of, it all depends where you look, but if you like to look at, what are the top 25 games, you lose Memphis Tulane because the committee yesterday did not put a single group of 5 team in their top 25. Interesting decision by the committee. Now, it's not that the AP poll was littered with them, but it kind of shows there's all the protection in the world. Again, last year's format was different, but like Boise State being the 4 or the 3, it was just, that was a mess. That was totally a mess. You're not going to see something like that again this season. Back to tonight's NBA slate, though, and we've gone over best bets. Let's just do it one more time in case you're just tuning in with us here on this Wednesday night. We've got target player props coming up for you. We have target player props coming up for you guys in 4 minutes, okay? Maybe call it 5 minutes, okay? Really excited about the options here on this slate. But best bets for tonight. I'm on the Mavs team total over 117.5. I really like this spot for Dallas at home against the Pels, who won the second leg of a back-to-back. Knicks Pistons moneyline parlay. That's how Chris is going to play it. Cedric Coward over the 13.5 points for Sam. And then AJ's on Blazers Mooney line going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The big game that does not get featured in our best bets is Lakers-Spurs. I am very excited for this game tonight. Victor Wembanyama is coming off of a 9-point 4-for-14 game against the Suns. They sold out to stop them. They did. They handed the Spurs their first loss of the season. Quick annoying sidebar, if I may. Wemby, under 10 points, the LeBron streak, one of the most impressive things in the history of sports. Just going to let that be said. But Wemby, you would expect to bounce back, right? Big effort. I am fascinated if the three-point shot starts to come alive a little bit more as the season goes on. But I'm going to back Wemby tonight over blocks plus steals. I will say this, I do it more often in the NFL than any other sport, but sometimes it's a field play. Wemby, prime time, the block numbers are incredible this year. They're at 4.8. The steals are at 1.4, so we're right around that. He's only had one multi-steal game this season. That feels like to me. I think Wemby could very easily clear this on blocks alone. There will be plenty of paint touches with Luka Doncic running the show. On that note, Luka Doncic tonight. Luka Doncic is off to, even by his standards, an unimaginable start. His points prop tonight, 35.5. His points, rebounds, and assists, 55.5. Tonight, I think Luka will go back to qualifying for the leaderboard. He is averaging 41 points per game with 11.5 rebounds and 8 assists. And this is the first time this year he plays without Austin Reeves. What is that stat line going to be? We'll find out sooner than later, but we have target player props coming up next.
Jeremiah Love is a player that you have to keep an eye out on just because of a running back, his versatility, how good he is in the receiving game this year. We haven't seen a running back potentially crack the top three when you just think about it with the Heisman Trophy back there. Jeremiah Love just dominant. If Notre Dame wins out and they're in the college football playoff, Love should be involved in the conversation.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Starts off on a positive note of getting Lamar Jackson back Thursday night, which was great. He threw for 200 yards, did not look rusty at all. He only rushed for 15, but he didn't really need that. Lamar Jackson also threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 of which going to Mark Andrews. So guess who's back and relative again at the tight end position now that Lamar's back? Oh, wait, it's Mark Andrews. No kidding. I mean, the guy just catches touchdowns. It's Lamar's favorite guy in the red zone.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly, Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Blue Jays are going to be dangerous for years to come because they have money. They're a fun team. Other players like Guerrero, the Blue Jays are a first-class organization. They treat the players very well. They're first-class complex. As I stated earlier, you can live like across the street from the stadium and there's no drama. You don't have to sit in traffic ever. You have an entire country that buys your jerseys and are big fans of yours.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Live here on a Wednesday night, it is Game Time Decisions. Still to come this hour, we will have Cam Stewart join us on a Wednesday. Always good to check in with Cam. I am on the fence if I bring up the Blue Jays or not. I don't know if I say sorry for the loss or if I just try not to let him think about it. I'm on the fence about how to handle that. We'll talk to Cam in 40 minutes. We're going to talk to NFL insider Adam Kaplan. Get his reactions, what he heard around the Jets fire sale yesterday that somehow stopped short of Brees Hall. Bizarre, as well as some of the other news like Howie Roseman addressing not trading A.J. Brown and Jacoby Brissett taking over for Kyler Murray in Arizona. We have Tom Vecchio joining us in 10 minutes' time to talk target player props, which we will do for you. But one more reminder before some of these games get underway. Best bets tonight on a Wednesday from the team. Mavs, team total over 117.5. Chris, Knicks, Pistons, moneyline, parlay. Not mad at it. Plus 104, plus 102. Wow, I didn't get the plus money party invite. You got to be kidding me. Now I'm mad at these guys. Cedric Coward over the points. That's 13.5. AJ, Blazers, moneyline, plus 160. AJ jumps us all with the best odds at plus 160. Look at me, a Coward. Minus 110. An unbelievable decision by me. That is, all right, let's do target player props. Shall we? There's a lot of good stuff here. It begins with a superstar, and I like that we are just giving you a straight. Now, it's hard to know what the number is going to be. This will be, I think, higher than the pure over-under, but I like that we're setting a number as the target, which is 100-plus rushing yards for Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, I mean, first of all, it speaks to me because I'm a bounce-back spot merchant. Everybody knows it. I own it. I like being one. And it's exactly what then speaks to me with Jonathan Taylor coming off of sub-50 for the first time this season. But it's not only the fact that he's coming off of sub-50. I said he didn't have 100 yards. Jonathan Taylor this season does not have a lot of streaks of under 100 yards and finds himself in a favorable matchup against this Atlanta defense that we have seen gashed on the ground. I think that the books are not going to come overly light on Jonathan Taylor, but that's why I like this is we're talking about a benchmark, whether we're getting plus 140, 2-1. I don't think we'd get plus 250, but getting a plus price on a benchmark that matters to a guy like this is interesting. I will just, on top of it though, since we're talking bounce back spots, Bijan Robinson's all of a sudden been non-existent for 3 straight games. This is who the game is against. Combo props for Taylor and Bijan speak to me. Maybe I won't be miserable during a international game for what will feel like the first time this season. Not likely. They've all been frustrating, but this one will be interesting. How about a quarterback rushing prop? I think we're seeing some hidden value here with J.J. McCarthy. I think it's on the board. McCarthy ran for 25 yards in each of his first 2 starts. Then well under that number in the win against the Lions. Finished with just 12. Some hidden yards, though. He lost 5 yards on kneel downs in that game. On the season, J.J. McCarthy is averaging over 6 yards per rush. And look, he has a couple of rushing touchdowns, so that kind of limits the yardage that you can get. I think this is going to be a light number. You saw, there just how his numbers have been priced. I don't think this is going to be anywhere near the 20s for McCarthy. And we've seen some quarterbacks. Look, you don't play a mobile quarterback every single week. Josh Allen got there. Caleb got there. Stroud had a 30-yard run, just one play alone. And that's the thing. This could be a one-play type of situation against Baltimore. I think McCarthy's rushing yards is a target. I love this pivot. It is such a perfect move to give Chris the full credit here. Every week we've talked about the Dallas number 1. Marvin Harrison gets there despite Kyler not starting. And Trey McBride got there. So anyway you sliced it, the number 1 option against Arizona gets the or against Dallas gets the touchdown. Dallas isn't on the slate. So what are we going to do? Fade New Dallas, a.k.a. the Washington Commanders defense? Boy, does that team give up 1 billion passing touchdowns. And number 1 wide receivers are getting in the mix. Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're looking at you. That's a big-time target for St. Brown. Again, this Commanders team, all of a sudden. Now, here's one of the interesting notes of this. But it's why I'm glad that this still kind of matched the eyes for the team. JSN didn't have a touchdown. But he could have. Sam Darnold was on such a heater. He missed a super easy touchdown to JSN for much harder touchdown, like over the middle. It was very, very impressive stuff from Darnold in that game, but also everything was made easy against that Commanders defense. Horton scored 2 touchdowns in the game. Rashee Rice with a touchdown. Lamb with a touchdown in that first game back. McConkey was in the end zone. London was in the end zone. I mean, Trey Tucker had a 3-touchdown game on their head, which is just outrageous. And speaking of Trey Tucker, you may have some reps coming your way, pal, in Vegas. But I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned with Jacoby Myers and what in the world we are supposed to do with his props this week against the Houston Texans. First of all, new place. So that immediately makes things complicated. And on top of that, Travis Hunter out, Brian Thomas Jr. questionable, and didn't practice today. So now, not only does Jacoby Myers end up in a new situation, he is, I would argue, expected to be the lead target against the Jaguars, but Parker Washington just had an 8 for 90 game. De'Ami Brown left that matchup with 7 targets against Vegas appropriately. You might say, hey, listen, I'm just going to back Jacoby Myers. Why wouldn't I? And then all of a sudden you remember they're playing the Texans. Top 3 pass defense in football. So I do not know what the books are going to do with this number. I cannot wait to see what they do with this number. We had there on one of the graphics there, his receiving yards per game, in the low 50s. I think my mind is telling me like 47.5 for Myers, but we'll see where it ultimately lands. Last one, a little off the beaten path. Rashid Shaheed is traded to Seattle. Chris Olave props are going to be on the way up. They should be. But Juwan Johnson becomes the target player prop. Maybe books will be all over this. Maybe. But there's no way they're not adjusting Olave, right? Juwan Johnson had just as many receptions and just as many targets as Chris Olave against the LA Rams. Because Shaheed was the lead man. He had a team-high 9 targets in Chuck's first start against LA. And now you play a Panthers defense that we have seen be vulnerable against tight ends this season. 7th most yards allowed per game this year to the tight end position. I think Juwan Johnson could be light in the market this week, as New Orleans still projects as well over a field goal underdog in this game and could be in a throwing script. One more point before we hit the break and we get Tom in to talk about all of these. I just want to say, Rashid Shaheed's going to make the debut in Seattle. I have no earthly idea what they'll do with that number. The long reception prop will, I'm sure they'll keep it nice and high. I just am fascinated to see if in any way does it bring back a Jackson Smith and Jigba number at all. Maybe it'll have no bearing on it whatsoever, but I think that JSN at some point has to be in line for like a 200-yard day, you would think. Just something to think about. We're going to get Tom Vecchio in the mix next. We'll be right here on SportsGrid.
Jeremiah Love is a player that you have to keep an eye out on just because of a running back, his versatility, how good he is in the receiving game this year. We haven't seen a running back potentially crack the top 3 when you just think about it with the Heisman Trophy back there. Jeremiah Love just dominant. If Notre Dame wins out and they're in the college football playoff, Love should be involved in the conversation.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Starts off on a positive note of getting Lamar Jackson back Thursday night, which was great. He threw for 200 yards, did not look rusty at all. He only rushed for 15, but he didn't really need that. Lamar Jackson also threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 of which going to Mark Andrews. So guess who's back and relative again at the tight end position now that Lamar's back? Oh, wait, it's Mark Andrews. No kidding. I mean, the guy just catches touchdowns. It's Lamar's favorite guy in the red zone.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly, Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Blue Jays are going to be dangerous for years to come because they have money. They're a fun team. Other players like Guerrero, the Blue Jays are a first-class organization. They treat the players very well. They're first-class complex. As I stated earlier, you can live like across the street from the stadium and there's no drama. You don't have to sit in traffic ever. You have an entire country that buys your jerseys and are big fans of yours.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on SportsGrid. It is Game Time Decisions. As always, good to have you on this Wednesday night. As always, on a Wednesday, we are joined by our guy Tom Vecchio to help us go through our target player props. Tom, good to have you in the mix. But before we do that, I'd love to just get to tonight's action, NBA, NHL, anything on this slate speaking to you.
I tweeted out 2 player props earlier today for NHL. Jacob Chikrin on Washington over 2.5, and Kirill Marchenko on Columbus over 2.5 as well. That's it. One's at plus money with Chikrin. A little bit of juice on Marchenko.
Are you keeping it light on the NBA early season? I know that maybe was kind of by design? I'm curious, is that something that you think will maybe continue? Because I just think it's really interesting for a guy like yourself, Tom, who can cover so many sports. Do you think you'll keep the NBA light until December, January? Like, what's the thought process there?
So, as I've said before, like first third of the season, I like a lot of player prop unders. I'll bet an over on a game just because there's a ton of points being scored. But at this point in the season, there's a lot of variables, and too many of them can negatively impact player props. And like, listen, when we see these games at like 130, 120, obviously there's plenty of players going over. But at this point in the season, injuries are a big factor. And let's just say a guy has a very minor injury, like he knocks knees with someone, like he can very clearly play. Sometimes they just don't push him out there. And this is also the point of the season where I like to refer to as saying like coaches are messing with the rotation. And I don't mean that negatively. They're just experimenting. Like this is the time for them to figure things out of what works and what doesn't. So, and a player that's projected for 36 minutes, all of a sudden is playing 30. And that may not seem like a big drop off, but if you have a 30% usage rate and you're missing 6 minutes, that's so many touches on the ball that prevents them from getting to the PRA. Injuries, all these sorts of things. So I prefer early season player prop unders. I'll take overs on games at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Tom, target player props this week, there were a few spots that caught our attention, but the puzzling one, at least to me, is what the books will do and then what we would do with Jacoby Myers. New situation like from a fantasy football perspective, it's like, yeah, all right, I got to start him, probably, I think. But the matchup isn't easy. The opportunity, though, could be a ton, Tom, with Travis Hunter out, and I think that is the direction Brian Thomas Jr. is trending.
Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. banged up. Parker Washington was good, but at the end of the day, I don't see him taking too many targets away from Jacoby Myers. And Jacoby should have a eight targets, let's call it, like a 25% target share or so. Parker Washington will be there. De'Ami Brown will be there. I think it's a pretty balanced offense. I think the number will be in the 50s, the mid to high 50s, and Parker Washington will be in the high 40s. This is just because we're not going to see Trevor Lawrence's number being too high, just given the defense that they're going up against. So that's really what it comes down to. The matchup is certainly difficult, and Derek Stingley Jr. is going to be on the other side, I assume, of Myers playing on the outside, not in the slot.
Do you think it's on the board, though, then, Tom, that because if Myers is in the let's say you're right, Myers is in the low 50s, where do we find Parker Washington numbers at coming off of an 8 for 90 game? Like, De'Ami Brown had 7 targets last week.
Yeah, I think we'll see. Like, my initial takeaway was, or like gut reaction would be Jacoby Myers 56.5, Parker Washington 47. And I think Parker Washington closed at 47 last week. So maybe if it gets bet up or it's right around there, people are going to be looking at the matchup. I think there's going to be like a 10-ish yard gap.
What's interesting then, and again, you may be spot on, but that then would basically be the book saying Jacoby Myers is Brian Thomas Jr., and I would not be comfortable with that, personally.
It's very fair, especially in this matchup. And if they were playing the Saints, the number would be a totally different story.
Right. Speaking of the Saints, I think Juwan Johnson is a real target. Maybe the books will be all ready for it. I'm sure there will be an increase. I don't know if there I'm not being hot takey with this at all. I think it's on the board that the separation between Juwan Johnson targets and Chris Olave targets is next to 0 with Tyler Shuck at quarterback.
That's very fair. It's also, to the point after, it's like, they really don't have anyone else after that besides Kamara to throw the ball to.
Right.
So to see removing one option with Rashid Shaheed being traded to Seattle, and they're not really replacing him with like another consistent option, the targets will be condensed to those two players, Olave and Juwan Johnson, like you said. The issue that we're going to deal with from this week and moving forward is just offensive inefficiency, and Tyler Shuck is just not good, and or they just don't sustain drives, so they just don't have enough chances to pile up targets and yards.
I wonder, just kind of another thing that's popped into my mind of what we see a Tyler Shuck long completion prop listed at, where Shaheed's gone. He's, that's of course his role. But last week, Shaheed's long was 26. Olave's was 27. I'd have to do a little bit of work on Carolina down the field and what a typical long number would be. But at the end of the day, And Tom, I'm sure you've bet into the market enough to know, yeah, it's easier when you hit a downfield shot, but sometimes you hit a guy over the middle for 12 and it turns into 32. So I don't know. That's something now that I want to look into as the week goes on in this situation as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. Most quarterback longest passes are generally in the 30s. It's always like a range of 32, 33 up to 36, whatever it might be. They're never going to hang him at 25. Like, let's just be honest about that. He's never going to be in the 20. Right. So it's just a matter of is it 32 or is it 36?
Let me stick with this game quickly before the break. And this wasn't a target player prop, but Rico Dowdle popped up on the injury report. Canales said all the right things. He's like, we're going to need him, giving him some rest. Do you trust that? Do you think?
Very, very honestly, it's Wednesday. Like, the Wednesday report really doesn't matter to me. So Thursday, if he's limited tomorrow and he's full on Friday, we're ready to roll. If there's issues on Friday, totally different conversation. But yes, very aware of that.
I went and looked Dowdle in his 4 starts. So that's versus Miami, Dallas, the Jets, and the Packers. 4 games, he would be top 10 in rushing yards on the season. I mean, he's 3rd overall, and he's not even been remotely close to the lead running back on the team, which is kind of wild. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Game Time Decisions. We're live on SportsGrid. We now have to figure out if they will be in the playoffs. They're the Super Bowl favorite and have shorter odds to miss the postseason as you and I sit here right now.
Right, but let me ask you this. Do you feel after this 5-4 record, 9 weeks, 10 weeks of the regular season, that their defense is as dominant as it was last year?
But the offense is better.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly, Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
You want to throw $12, $13 million at Kiffin? That's always a possibility. Summerall, they lost the other night to, in that matchup to UTSA. Or do you go back to potentially the mad scientist and Nick Saban, give him, complete control of the athletic department and see if he can turn it around? We'll see. But whatever they go, they're going to need a coach to hit the ground running.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions, we are back with you on a Wednesday night. NBA slate is off and running, as is the Maction. We're joined by Tom Vecchio, talking through some target player props here on this Wednesday night. Tom, Jonathan Taylor is in a clear and obvious bounce-back spot against Atlanta. How high do you think the books can set this number here with Taylor playing in a primetime spot over in Berlin?
I think how high will it end up? I think it's going to be in his normal mid-90s-ish area. That's where it's always going to be. It's a crazy number that it's that high sometimes. And, all these premium players have to be that high. JSN the other night was 98.99, which is absolutely crazy. But that's where it should be. And, we have, what was it, 4 Sundays ago, whenever it was, we saw CMC run all over this Falcons defense. And considering it's not just a bounce back spot for Jonathan Taylor, it's just a bounce back spot for the team overall, I really view this as, let's get back to basics. We're in an international game. Let's get back to these basics and let's get a win and get back on track and get home. That's how I really view this. There's no reason he shouldn't be touching the ball 22 times.
Well, that assumes a blowout, though, does it not? Or
No. I just think that if the defense, the Falcons' run defense is bad, they're gonna wear them down. I think they just want to be like, hey, he's the best. We're going to wear them down. We'll do the play action with Danny Dimes when we need to. You're not going to be able to stop Warren and Michael Pittman on the outside. A.D. Mitchell's no longer there. It's going to be Alec Pierce. They have enough options that the play action will open up the deep shots, and then Taylor will be able to run wild.
I guess I'm just looking. Look, this is not a team that's played a lot of close football games. Against Denver, 27 touches. The Rams would be 22. Arizona would be 25. This is kind of who they are. Unless it's a blowout, that Taylor workload is going to be sky high. It's what we've come to know. Tom, again, you always get into that touchdown market. Amon-Ra St. Brown, kind of stands out to the team here. The Commanders might be the new Cowboys. What do you think?
Totally love it. I mean, anytime we get a premium receiver in an awesome matchup. I'm always price sensitive. I don't like laying, I don't like odds that are -110, -120 for touchdowns. Touchdowns are highly variable. There are times that we see running backs that are -200 that don't score. So I think St. Brown will score. Doesn't mean I'm going to like his odds if they're -105. I won't bet that if they're -105.
You need a plus. What do you see? I think so. Gibbs is going to be minus
160.
Higher, actually. I think he's going to be like -200. I do.
Totally
because he
agree.
doesn't. What I'm curious of is what's the Montgomery number going to be? Because I don't think you're getting that at cheap anymore. Laporta's not going to be cheap.
But it won't be like if you told me Gibbs was -200 and Montgomery was -130, I think that's fair.
All right. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Last one for you, Tom. J.J. McCarthy. And I think Minnesota as a whole is fascinating against Baltimore this week. But I think his rush yards, I think there's some hidden value there. With 5 yards lost last week on kneel downs, I know they were booked as a dog, but they're booked as a dog again. I wouldn't project, part of it was they had to take a knee before half. I think we could find some value on J.J. McCarthy on the ground against the Ravens.
Absolutely, with the Ravens just getting just a little bit healthier on defense. Obviously the most recent game wasn't the best measuring stick for that, but getting a little bit healthier on defense. If we do see the Vikings playing from behind, a little bit of scrambling is always possible. I am trying to balance in my head, where is the coaches telling him, hey, let's be safe and not let's run too much after the ankle injury.
So that's one of the things, Tom, is I'm just someone who doesn't think he was really all that hurt.
Okay.
He just wasn't. You know what I mean? He just wasn't that hurt. He just wasn't, Like Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray was allegedly going to be a part of the game plan against Dallas and is now on IR. Like, that's clearly a different situation than what they're telling us. I don't think that's unfair at all.
Totally. There was a tweet from Schefter earlier last week said that the Cardinals were anticipating or preparing or whatever the phrase was for Murray to play against the Cowboys. And then, he's not, and it's Jacoby again.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. Yeah, exactly. Right. It makes for a very messy situation in Arizona, or maybe not. Maybe this is really obvious and we know what's coming. Tom, appreciate it. As always, best of luck on the ice tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Great stuff from Tom Vecchio. We'll stick with the Kyler Murray questions and a few others with our next guest. That's going to be NFL insider Adam Kaplan after the break. now have to figure out if they will be in the playoffs. They're the Super Bowl favorite and have shorter odds to miss the postseason as you and I sit here right now.
Right, but let me ask you this. Do you feel after this 5-4 record, 9 weeks, 10 weeks of the regular season, that their defense is as dominant as it was last year?
But the offense is better.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly, Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
You want to throw $12, $13 million at Kiffin? That's always a possibility. Summerall, they lost the other night to, in that matchup to UTSA. Or do you go back to potentially the mad scientist and Nick Saban, give him, complete control of the athletic department and see if he can turn it around? We'll see. But whatever they go, they're going to need a coach to hit the ground running.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
With you right here on SportsGrid, Game Time decisions, big decisions made across the National Football League yesterday. To talk more about that's NFL insider Adam Kaplan. Cap, it is always good to talk with you. Yesterday, the Jets, it's like, hey, who's going to be the story of the day? The Jets? Yeah, it was the Jets. Yeah. They did a lot, including Sauce Gardner to Indianapolis and Quinnen Williams to Dallas. Take me through some of the reactions you heard around the league yesterday across really, three different teams that made some big decisions.
Yeah, let's go to the Jets, right? The Jets of all teams, Kevin, as you said very well, were the epicenter for blockbuster trades, because leading up till Tuesday, it had been your typical mundane trade time around the National Football League. Lots of minor moves. Micah Parsons was traded weeks ago, and then we had 8 trades, by the way, which I'm told ties the league record, going back over 30 years on trade deadline day. And here's why it happened. And we'll get into the reaction also in a minute. So what happens is you have what are called trade calls. You start, once you get an idea of what other teams look like, let's say a team's 0-4, well, you start calling the GM. You're going to call them in early October. If a team's 1-4, 1-5, you don't wait till now. You call weeks ago. And then you finalize, or you keep calling until you come to a resolution. So Darren Muji, I give him credit. He'd like to be buttoned up, but he did say that Chris Ballard didn't stop. They weren't getting a deal done over the weekend, and it might have been A.D. Mitchell was thrown in. By the way, it was a second-round pick last year. But let me get to the reaction, okay? Chris Ballard is seen as super conservative, one of the most conservative GMs in the National Football League. He's an all-time scout. He's the guy who found Charles Tillman in Lafayette, Louisiana, many, many years ago. Really good evaluator. But doesn't like to make trades. Look, if you don't make trades and you don't sign a lot of free agents, you got to get your draft picks right. And he's done an average job at it. So you saw he tried with Anthony Richardson. It didn't work. He was aggressive. He drafted Richardson. Didn't work. Daniel Jones certainly, until last week, worked pretty well so far. And we'll get to that Daniel Jones thing in a second as well. But looking at the overview of the reaction, stunned and very negative. And here's why, Kevin. When you look at a cornerback, yes, Sauce Gardner is really, really good. One of the top 10 corners in the league, maybe top 5. But he's not playing quite as good as he did last year, based on tape study from what I've been told. But the way, when you put a value chart together for a roster, it's quarterback, it's left offensive tackle. Okay, left offensive tackle is very, very important. And then right defensive end is 3 because he goes up against the left offensive tackle. Then cornerback. So it's not a number one position on a team. But the reason why Ballard and the word around the league was there weren't a lot of corners available. It was either it was cost prohibitive or they just weren't available. Ballard knew. He's got Kenny Moore, who's maybe the NFL's best nickel defender. He couldn't go to the playoffs with what he had at corner. And Muji put a high price. They just remember, Kevin, they just extended Sauce Gardner's contract. The Jets did, before the season started. So he overpays, and it just was shock around the league. To answer your question, it was shock. No one could believe it. Of Chris Ballard, of all people, Mr. Conservative, and Kevin, for a corner, not a quarterback, which, by the way, they don't know who their future quarterback is, okay?
Well, so that's the thing, Cap. A lot of people's kind of, A plus B equals C is this decision means Daniel Jones is now the quarterback of the future in Indianapolis. What do you make of that, or what have you heard around that?
That's actually what a couple personnel guys said. They're now married to Daniel Jones. No doubt about it. They have to be because they don't have first-round picks in 26 or 27. It's not that you can't draft a starter in the second and third rounds. By the way, rounds 2 and 3 are called starter rounds, but the success rate, the lower you go, is worse. So unless you make a trade for a quarterback, we sign a free agent, they're married. Look, they've made it clear they want Daniel Jones back. He's been really, really good. Save last week, he was awful. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is just not like Ballard. I'm stunned. I like the personal guys that I spoke to. I would say I got at least 6 text messages. One understood what Ballard was doing because remember, Jim Irsay, this guy, he brought this up because remember, Jim Irsay passed away. The daughters were running the football team.
Yeah.
And at some point, he's got to start winning. They have done nothing in the playoffs. They've made the playoffs before, but done nothing. And ever since Andrew Luck suddenly retired, he's got it wrong at quarterback. Every single one of them. He just hadn't got it right. And now he's got Daniel Jones, who's brought in to push Anthony Richardson, would beat him out for the job.
I wonder, though, Cap, it's interesting, right? And I more than understand the critiques of what Indianapolis did. There were some teams who sat on their hands, though, in the AFC. That Colts move, I think, is a challenge that they look at Buffalo, Kansas City Sunday and go, yeah, they're both beatable. And those two teams connected to different things, right? Buffalo connected to wide receiver help. Kansas City connected to running back help. Neither one did a thing, Cap.
Yeah, it stunned me that, in fact, the Chargers did not do anything at running back. I know they're going to get Hampton back sometime. They're hopeful that he'll be back in early December at the latest. But they were looking, if they were going to do anything, it would be a one-year rental who they would not, if they trade for Breece Hall, they're not bringing him back. Hampton's the guy. So it didn't make any sense. But it's like, I know one team told me that they wondered if Carolina would trade Chuba Hubbard because of Rico Dowdle has come out of nowhere to be a stud. But that his contract's too rich. He just signed extension last year. He's got too much guaranteed money, I'm told, next year. So that made his contract untradeable. Yeah, but I'm a little surprised that the Chiefs didn't make a trade for running back. Now, the word I got was they do believe that they're going to get the kid who's got the MCL sprain back after their bye. But and that makes sense. But they're a little shaky with the running game. And by the way, this blows me away. How in the world are they still the odds makers' favorite to win the Super Bowl at 5-4? They got the shortest odds at plus. A lot of books I saw at plus 550. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was surprised by it as well. I think the only justification is they still have both games against Denver left, and clearly they're going to be positioned as comfortable favorites in both of those football games. Cap, one thing that didn't take, Kyler Murray's name was kicked around more than anybody would have imagined on Tuesday. Nothing happened as far as a trade goes, but he got placed on the IR. And Jonathan Gannon, who you know at least from his time in Philadelphia, had an easy out. Kyler's not healthy. That's why we're going with Jacoby. He went, hey, just so everybody knows, Brissett was keeping the job regardless. Am I wrong to read that as Kyler Murray's time in Arizona is coming to a close?
It was Jonathan Gannon is sort of mercurial. He said some stuff that you scratch your head a little bit. That the way that he said it was, let's put it this way: the way that he said it was unnecessary. You set it up well. He could have protected the club and the player. It doesn't help. Murray's got a midfoot sprain, so he can't play. He's not healthy. That's well known. But to put it out that way, and Jacoby Brissett's one of the better backups in the league. He has no future as a starter. He's just not. He's a very good backup. But the bottom line is, when you look at it, they're a team that's kind of stuck in neutral. They don't know who the future quarterback is. And by the way, Murray's contract is not easy to trade. The way that it's structured, the guarantees they guarantee a year in advance. Like, if he's on the roster this March, next year's base salary, a lot of it's fully guaranteed. That's the way the guarantees were structured. He's a smaller quarterback, smaller than 5'11", a lot of injuries. He's talented, but it's a lot of unstructured plays. Not going to be easy to trade him. And then you notice this, Kevin, when you don't know what you have at quarterback, it's hard to win. And we see that around the National Football League a lot.
Yeah, absolutely so. It was just, I think your description of Jonathan Gannon is fair, and it gives a lot of insight into why he said it the way he did, but he said it. And he can't take it back.
He did.
And a lot of these quarterbacks, like Kyle Shanahan says all the right things around Brock Purdy, right? Or the Vikings said all the right things around McCarthy. Gannon was like, yeah, Kyler stinks. I mean, he's not healthy, but that guy's not our guy. There's so many other things, Cap. We will check in as always on Sunday. We appreciate it. Try and, maybe put the phone down if you can for like 20 minutes. I know it's been a busy couple of days.
Oh, good. Thanks, man.
All right, great stuff as always. From Cap, we've got our guy Cam Stewart on deck next with you right here this Wednesday night. We now have to figure out if they will be in the playoffs. They're the Super Bowl favorite and have shorter odds to miss the postseason as you and I sit here right now.
Right, but let me ask you this. Do you feel after this 5-4 record, 9 weeks, 10 weeks of the regular season, that their defense is as dominant as it was last year?
But the offense is better.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly, Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
You want to throw $12, $13 million at Kiffin? That's always a possibility. Summerall, they lost the other night to, in that matchup to UTSA. Or do you go back to potentially the mad scientist and Nick Saban, give him, complete control of the athletic department and see if he can turn it around? We'll see. But whatever they go, they're going to need a coach to hit the ground running.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
With you here on a Wednesday night with an absolute treat. In fact, I'm pretty sure back home they are celebrating my dad's birthday, a little birthday dinner a couple of days early. So here's a gift for him, none other than Cam Stewart. Cam, one of his favorite people in the world. Cam, how are you, sir?
Shut up, Mr. Walsh. Bowl of 300, baby. Or at least have a nice big piece of cake or a cold one, a shot of Jameson, whatever you're going to do. Happy birthday. Kev, I got to tell you, I went to Buffalo last night. Got a call. Who wants to go to the Utah Mammoth Sabres game? Crickets, tumbleweed, Me. I'm like, you know what? The best thing about going to Buffalo is they're a city that's had heartbreak, and I'm with them. After the Blue Jays World Series, I'm like, I might as well go to Buffalo. It was a great night out watching hockey, and that Utah Mammoth team's playing Toronto right now, live under 5.5. We got a buck 26 left in the period. It's a very defensive battle, and I saw a 2-1 hockey game yesterday. But Kev, still getting over the World Series. Sussman called me today. He's like, "Are you okay?" I thought he was talking about like my family or my girlfriend. I know she's got to have surgery. No, I'm like, he was talking about the Blue Jays. I'm over it, but I'm not. It's just one of those things. When you're in a position to win and you're that close, and you know sports, you might not ever get there again. So you know what I mean? It's just one of those situations where you could have. There were so many chances. So it's still shocking how things went down. That's all.
Yeah, I will say, Cam, I on air said I'm not sure if I'll bring it up to you because I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to be the one. I've said this to people. So I lost a couple dollars on them not winning the World Series, and I've said this. I go, I don't care. I've never cared less about losing a bet because I know that my complaints and my upsetness is not 1/10 of an actual Blue Jay fan. That is one of the most devastating series I've ever seen in my life. 3 of the 4 losses were beyond devastating. They were, like Rojas.
Like balls under foam.
Every
it's like
highlight makes my stomach sick. It's awful.
These are regular plays. These are things that happen once in a million, and they happen multiple times, like 10 different times in the series. You're watching it again. I have all the games taped. I'm like, how is this happening? But anyway, Kevin, we move on. We move forward. Happy my Seahawks are playing well. That's one good news. I know you had Cap on, and Cap in the break in the green room before he left was telling me he liked the Shaheed move by the Seahawks as well. If you're going to do anything, we're going to get to the golf because there actually is a couple tournaments this week, and these guys are out there having fun. But Seattle to win the division, plus 150 on FanDuel. I love this Seahawks team. I love what they're doing. The Rams are the favorite, but I'm just the way they're beating down everybody. I think that's a perfect receiver with speed for them. Cooper Kupp's getting older, so I'm very high on this team right now. Kevin, I had no expectations heading into the season, so this is special.
Yeah, I think they are clearly a really good group. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba should have much shorter odds to win Offensive Player of the Year. I think I think he has a better case actually than Taylor right now, if not just as good. I will say from a futures perspective, winning the division makes sense. Fair or not, I can't trust Darnold in the playoffs after how last year went. Because he was just as good, Cam, in the regular season for Minnesota. Okay, he is better right now than he was in the regular season, to be fair. But the playoffs came around, and it was a nightmare. It just was.
I'm going to tell you, though, Kev, I think things are different with Seattle. We'll get to the golf. Just the way they protect him. He doesn't have to go just to Jefferson. They're trying to get a balanced run game. The offensive line has been surprising. Charbonnet is a great chip blocker. We talk about this team is just playing team football right now. They've had injuries, too. I don't think it's the same thing. I know one thing about Sam Darnold, watching him play every week, I'm in shock. This guy, you give him time, he will shred you. And I believe we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Sure, it was bad against Minnesota. He got beat down. Let's remember, their offensive line was absolutely in shambles at the end of the season, and he got murdered. If Seattle can keep him upright, I'm fine with this. So anyway, I'm trying to look at the glass half empty after the World Series. Kevin, we have tournaments in Mexico this week.
Yeah, what do we got here, Cam?
Oh, yeah, we got the Worldwide Technology Championship. These guys are out there swinging it. Let's go. Max Bracerman, the product of Duke. The Blue Devils, 25-1. Can I tell you a story about Supermax? 2nd and 4th in his last 2 events. We get a 25-1 is a great price on a guy that absolutely shreds it in Mexico. He plays well there too. Next, we're going to go with Garrett Higgle, one of the hotter players in the world. Kev, remember I had him that week when I came on with you. He finished 2nd in the tournament. So all these guys, we take top 10. Hey, that's golf, man. You think you're talking about the Blue Jays golf? Every week you're going to get like a 2nd and a 3rd. And one guy that's done really well in Mexico, this one's for your dad. I take him every week. But Steven Yeager, there you go, Mr. Walsh. Have a tray of Yeager bombs. Happy birthday. Let's go. 65 Yeager bombs, Mr. Walsh. And I'll tell you, a top 10 and 20 for Yeager. Top 10, Ben Griffin, one of the hottest USA players in the world. This guy is a great, talented American golfer who's getting better all the time. Plus 130 for a top 10. I'm in. Rico Hoey, the pride of the Philippines, at plus 105. And my old friend, Eric Cole. I'm going to get Wetzel. He's going to be all over me in the next segment when I do with Gabe. He's like, you're picking Cole and Yeager again? Yeah, for a top 20 at plus 210. Great history in Mexico. Lots of top 10s. And what do you need to do at this course here? Fairways and greens. That's what Cole does. Another tournament, Kev, and the European Tour, it's the Abu
Another
Dhabi
tournament.
Classic.
They keep sneaking up.
Oh, these guys, I tell you, golf's unreal. And right now, message, 10:15 Eastern first tee, guys. It's in Abu Dhabi. So if you want to get your golf fix on, I have a couple guys, but I'm going to give one on the show, Ty Hatton. Rory McIlroy has won the race to Dubai, which is basically the European FedEx Cup, 6 times. Ty Hatton, anything over 8-1 is good for me. He's always in the mix. Second, third, maybe he can break through at 11-1, Kev. The very fiery Brit loves playing in the desert as well. So does Rory. They're the 2 best desert players there. Rory's 5-1, Hatton's 11. Give me a slice.
I'll root them all in. I love it. I said this to Brady the other day. I'm like, every week there's a golf tournament. I have no idea until I talk to one of you guys. I have no clue. Cam, before we let you go, any other action for tonight we should keep our eye on?
Yeah, and this game, Utah has just taken the lead against Toronto. If you're looking for the Leafs live, Utah is on a back-to-back up 1-0 at the end of the first period. Also, I kind of have a shot with Columbus against Calgary. Small play, Kev, but live, Toronto, you're getting a nice little price against the Utah Mammoth. And Vancouver and Chicago, that's going to be a very interesting game. Chicago 10-3 on the puck line. One of the best stories in the National Hockey League. I expect goals in this game against Vancouver as well. But if you're going to take Toronto, take them live. They're down a goal. You get a nice price. They can come back and win. Utah is going to be tired in the third.
Some in-game advice from Cam Stewart. You'll be able to catch him on In-Game Live before we close out Game Time Decisions. A college football team who should panic next. We now have to figure out if they will be in the playoffs. They're the Super Bowl favorite and have shorter odds to miss the postseason as you and I sit here right now.
Right, but let me ask you this. Do you feel after this 5-4 record, 9 weeks, 10 weeks of the regular season, that their defense is as dominant as it was last year?
But the offense is better.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly, Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
You want to throw $12, $13 million at Kiffin? That's always a possibility. Summerall, they lost the other night to, in that matchup to UTSA. Or do you go back to potentially the mad scientist and Nick Saban, give him, complete control of the athletic department and see if he can turn it around? We'll see. But whatever they go, they're going to need a coach to hit the ground running.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions on SportsGrid. Up next, you get In-Game Live. Gabriel Morency, Scott Wetzel, right here on SportsGrid. It's going to be a great night. They're going to have plenty to get into. NBA, NHL. I'm sure they're both betting the action. Who knows? They may find some college basketball in them as well. Before we get you our best bets one final time, any action that we have on this Wednesday night. Yesterday, we saw the College Football Playoff Committee give us their top 25. Prior to that, though, here on Game Time Decision, we did our college football tiers. And no surprise, college football tiers held up very nicely because the Big Ten was represented not once but twice in our already in category. We were very kind to both Ohio State and Indiana, who the committee ranked 1 and 2. We did not get Oregon, though, in our tiers until the Big Ten hopefuls. And the committee let us know that is exactly what they are. Hopeful, far from a guarantee. And I'll go one step further. If Oregon loses to Iowa, you might be cooked. It's under a touchdown. It's on the road. If you know anything about college football, you know that's dangerous. And what happens if Oregon loses to Iowa? Well, they're going to go tumbling. There are a ton of teams who will be jumping them. Let's say chalk holds. They will be jumped by Notre Dame, Virginia, Vanderbilt, Louisville, Utah, Oklahoma, Texas, and Iowa. Half of those teams are on bye, so there's nothing they can do about it. It's on the board because they will be jumped by Iowa, that they are also jumped by Georgia Tech, Miami, and USC. A loss for Oregon guarantees they fall out of the top 15 and potentially top 20. And now, you don't come close to controlling your destiny. The thought for Oregon is, hey, listen, at 10 and 2, we're fine. If you lose to Iowa and you're holding out hope that those USC and Washington games are going to be your saving grace, well, don't hold out too much hope. There's no telling what happens to USC or UW before those games. And even then, you'd be beating teams potentially ranked behind you. You'd be knocking them out of the top 25. And you would still be on the outside looking in, needing chaos in front of you. The Oregon Ducks were as big a loser on the opening rankings from the College Football Playoff Committee as we saw. I know it was a bad day for the ACC, but again, the tiers were spot on. Oh no, it looks like the ACC is only going to get one team in their champion. Yeah, who told you that? This guy, yesterday. That 2-bit ACC cut it out. Well, Miami in front of Notre Dame, because everybody knows Notre Dame is better. That's why. Cut it out. All right? Oregon, if they lose to Iowa, and I'm hearing Ducks could be wheel play of the century. That's what I'm hearing early, but I'm hearing it. Then they are in some trouble. Let's put best bets on the board. No wheel plays here, we hope. Knicks Pistons moneyline parlay. Jazz leading. Wolves leading. It's early. It's early. It's early. It's early. We've seen this before. We have seen this before. We know that. If you remember, first half team total Cal, they didn't have any points. It bounced back. I'm just saying, if you liked it at plus 104, you'll love it at plus 156. Root it in. Root it in. We need those units to place them on the Ducks. Come on now. Root it in. Cedric Coward, the who play of the day. Classic Sam Yarnell. Maction had too much of a spotlight on it. He had to find something even more off the radar. Cedric Coward. Follow the money himself. AJ Blazers Muni line. It's a plus 160. And then Chalk Kev Mavs team total over 117.5 minus 110. In-game lives next on SportsGrid.